Okay, so we're going to begin. Might be joined by a few other people in the next couple of minutes. So my name is Raoul Monks. I am founder and director, actually founder and CEO of Flume Sales Training. I'm joined today by Ranju, Chris and Mark. I'll give them a proper introduction in a minute. This is the second sales confidence webinar that we're running. We are absolutely privileged to be the ambassador for the sales development group at the AEO, and today is all about putting confidence back into the industry. In webinar number one, we looked at how to put confidence back into the sales experience by focusing on what the client needs from that sales experience. I think you can get that on catch up through the AEO if you missed that one. This session today is all about sales leadership, and we are joined by three absolute sales leader legends. Today we're going to be finding out what they've been doing throughout the last year, but also the lessons they've learned moving forward that have affected the way that they do business and the way that they've driven confidence into the teams. The next session, just so you are aware, is all around event businesses, and we will be delivering a similar approach to this, but looking at what at a business level companies can do to drive confidence through their teams and also through the industry. So let me introduce who we are. Quick wave will probably be enough at this point, guys, because you are going to be doing most of the talking moving forward. And boy, I know you've got some opinions. So let's come first. We have Mark Lewis, Ocean Media. Hi, Mark.
Hi, good afternoon, Raoul. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm Mark Lewis. I'm the head of event sales, delegate sales with the Ocean Media Group, specializing in the housing sector.
Great stuff. Ranju.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ranju. I'm with Reed Exhibitions. I'm currently working on London Book Fair.
Great stuff. Chris.
Hi, everyone. Head of sales at Forum Events, and I look after all of our events that are summits and forums.
Fabulous. Okay, so this today is being recorded, so you are able to get it on demand probably from around Friday time. What I would say though, one of the massive benefits of joining live today, and thank you for joining live, is that you guys can lean in and get involved. So the way we're going to be running this today is we're going to be introducing a benchmark as to what strong sales leadership looks like around instilling sales confidence into the industry and your teams. We're going to go through one part of the benchmark at a time, get real life case studies from these three geniuses here, and then at the very end of it we're going to be asking you guys for your input. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, or maybe top depending on what version of Zoom you've got a little button that says Q&A. So if you want to put in a question, feed it in there, and at the end of the 45 minutes we'll see if there's any questions. We'll do our best to answer it. As we go through, get involved in the chat, guys. If you want to say that you're here or say hello to people, then please do, but any questions for the end, please put in the Q&A at the bottom. Okay, so we are going to get started. The way we're going to begin this is I'm going to take you through a benchmark which is available directly after this. So we've produced it over the past 4 to 5 months with the AEO, with the help of these guys here, and also a number of other people from the industry, looking at creating what is working right now in terms of instilling confidence. So I would strongly recommend to get a copy of the download afterwards so that you guys can look at your own businesses and think, what can we do to drive even more confidence into our teams? So I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of the 5 areas we're going to talk about. I'm going to go through one by one, have about 7 or 8 minutes in each one, getting shared case studies from each of these guys, and then move on to the next one. Remember, ask questions as you go through any Q&A, and I'll come to them at the end. Luckily for you guys, I'll be doing the least talking out of anyone, so we are going to get proper insights from people who are in your role. So the 5 areas we're going to look at to instill confidence in teams. What can sales leadership do? The first thing to say is that our belief at Flume is that the most important purpose of any sales leader is very simple, is to make it as easy as possible for salespeople to sell more. And so therefore, this benchmark has been built out of that premise. 5 areas we're going to look at. Number 1, prioritizing sales mastery, putting the improvement of sales ability at the heart of your strategy to allow your sales teams to deliver a best-in-class sales experience every time. Number 2, perfecting messaging. Without the right story, without the right insight, without the right message to go to market with, the best salespeople will still struggle. So making sure that your messaging is apt for today's market and for today's audiences is absolutely crucial. Number 3, creating toolkits and processes which make it easier for your salespeople to make it easier for their clients to buy into and to sell on within their businesses. Number 4, motivates in the right way, not just saying if you hit your target, then you get your money. Using ingenious ways to motivate in an intrinsic way, like has always been necessary, but may not have been absolutely crucial as it is now. Number 5, supports team success. So gets involved in being in that overall approach with the teams. We'll go through and break these down one by one as we go through. So these are the 5 areas. Going to start with prioritizing sales mastery, and I'm going to get these guys here chatting. So, okay, so what do we mean by prioritizing sales mastery? I'm going to give 3 bullet points for each one. These do emulate the benchmark or diagnostic that you can get at the end of this. So let us know if you want a copy of it. Here we go. This is what we're talking about. Put sales mastery at the heart of their sales performance improvement strategy. So as a way to drive revenues, puts the improvement of sales approaches at the very center. Measures and incentivizes sales mastery. This is something we're seeing having such an impact at the moment of Flume sales training, where actually we're incentivizing not just the performance revenues wise, but actually the improvement performance of people's approaches to sales and helping them see the impact that's having. So measuring and also incentivizing sales mastery. And prioritizing training and coaching across the team. Without reinforcement and coaching, any development that you guys are doing ain't going to stick. And so actually putting that at the heart of the strategy as a sales leader is crucial. So I'm going to keep this screen up, but I'm going to pass over now to Chris. We're going to start with you. Tell us a bit about this for you. What have you done or seen or realized over the last year or so, and what it's left you with in terms of how you do things now? And then we'll get Mark and Ranju will get your views on the different areas too. So Chris, over to you.
I think definitely from the start, when it all kicked off, we just realized very quickly that no one really wanted to be sold at or to. Hammering down someone's throat exactly what we do just wasn't going to work. At the very start, I mean, the more people we go after is more usually marketing managers, and they were just all over the place. They didn't know if they could spend, they didn't know if they had budget. They had 5-10 people over their shoulder looking at every penny that they would be spending. So we just completely changed our approach, not only as senior management, but also for the sales team. So to coin one of the early webinars that you guys did was the help not sell, and we really bought into that. We really just focused on when we were talking and pitching to these people, in effect creating an awareness of who we are as a company and why we were calling them. So rather than buy this, it was simply, I work for an events company. I do an event in either against your role or in your sector, and I just want to make you aware of it for now or in the future. And we got really good traction from it, and still do. And then for the sales team especially, it took kind of the weight off of their kind of shoulders. They were able to relax. That we were just asking them to just go and pitch well, make an awareness of us as a company and our events, make sure they understand the benefits, and then that will just naturally create interest and naturally get people to book whatever angle you were doing it. Just at that time, it was obviously a lot smaller margin percentages of people booking than we were probably used to.
Yeah.
And we still do that. Just really being clear why we were calling, we found really beneficial. And where we've kind of dragged that and still doing, we created a small morning group call, Zoom, obviously, 5 or 6 people, 3, 4 sometimes, and then within them calls, we'd share best practices, and we found that really useful. So if someone's having a lot of success, doing one thing, we made sure that they shared that, and we actually found that kind of barrier of, no, I'm doing something good, I'm not going to tell everyone else, really went out the window as well. So it had a lot of dominoes, and I'm kind of on the training, we'd always make sure there was a senior per call. And then they'd also be able to teach any of the junior team in how to do their approaches as well.
That's interesting. So quite a few different pieces there. One kind of taking on that methodology of help, not sell. Two, which I want to come back to, is the peer-to-peer learning, getting people to learn from each other. And then you talk about the training piece there as well. But in terms of that peer-to-peer learning, that's something you're still doing, right? So just explain how that kind of mechanism on that Zoom group works. What do you ask them to do? How do you get them to open up? Because I love that point of actually people not just trying to hide what their approach and hide how they've won, actually sharing it, and also probably where they failed, I assume, as well at some point, and what they've learned.
Yeah, that's sometimes that's as important. If they've been hitting their head against a brick wall, well, let's not no one else hit their head against a brick wall as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of trying to get them to open up, we first did the calls as a kind of everyone sitting at home on their own, different pressures in the background. Let's just have a call just to wake eyes up and trying to get people waking up for the day, and getting them to open. Luckily, we had a sales team that were quite mature to realise that everyone's struggling. So if there's one thing that I can share, well, maybe I'll get 2 or 3 things back. And somehow put that all into a cauldron, and out comes the other end is something that's worked. So it's been really beneficial.
Great, Chris, thank you so much. Ranju, what's your experience been of this?
So I'm going to specifically talk about, us all pivoting to digital. I think that's been a huge part of a learning experience for everybody. And I think early on, there were lots of products out there, and what was the right product for people? People were skeptical to try them, and some did try them, didn't succeed. So, going through the year, we've learned about Zoom fatigue or online fatigue, and what is actually going to get our customers to engage with us. And with everything that we've done, it's just really been customer led. Are we actually fulfilling a need for our customer? Are we supporting the industry? Can we get them to engage, and can we keep it simple? So this is what we've learned, and we feel quite strongly about, unless we get certain areas where we can almost focus our attention, so we're not creating a live event as you would online, but creating series of niche events for sectors that identify a need. So that's the sort of mastery and customer-led initiatives which is giving us better sort of engagement with our clients.
I love that, and actually kind of it falls into the lap of one of my favorite ways of thinking, which is just make it easy for the client to say yes, and looking at everything from that client's perspective and thinking, actually, with our current approach, how easy or tough are we making it, and how can we take away some of those barriers and make it simpler? So it sounded like for you guys, one of those answers was to go more niche with the specificity of those events to really tailor into the needs of that client. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different sectors, and not all the audience. You don't want to attract all the audience. You want to attract the right audience for the right customers, that it is customer led. So it could be smaller, it doesn't matter, and have a number of them. But I think definitely it has given better value back to our customers.
Love it. So we're going to move on to the next one in a second. Just to kind of put a few stats behind this to cement how important this is. Based on Gartner stats, the reasons clients buy is based on 4 areas: price, brand, products and service, and sales experience. But when you look at a percentage and the importance of them, price is 9% of the importance, 19% is product and service, 19% is brand, 53% of why they're going to choose you is down to the sales experience. And that is why cementing this, but making it as strong as possible, is probably going to be your key differentiator in a world where for clients, a lot of stuff seems the same. So that's part 1. We're going to move on to part 2, and let's see what one we've got here. So perfect messaging. So just to introduce this, without the right story, without the right narrative, it's very difficult for even the best salespeople to sell in the right way. And I think, Ranju, you just mentioned just there, actually, a big part about the audience. And realistically, the reason a client should be buying something is if it's going to make it easy for the audience to say yes. So creating messaging that teaches clients about the audience and the journey, but adds real value through your media packs, through your rate cards, through everything you kind of do, your web journey that you go through, is really crucial. So what do we mean by that? So works closely with other internal teams to consistently create meaningful insights around audience behavior and engagement. Some great examples I've heard over the last years of people really nailing into, right, let's look at our audience, understand them, how they buy, what stops them buying, how they engage, how to get them more engaged, and using that as a reason why with clients they should do one thing over another, but really bringing that into the narrative. Works with the team to incorporate insight and storytelling into sales approaches. So you might have these insights and storytelling, but how and when do you bring them in, and who do you bring them in with, and having a planned approach to that, really crucial. Third one on this, positions all sales messaging around a clear purpose, focus on driving audience engagement and client ROI. So if you think about your why as a sales team or sales company, when you're client focused, client facing, realistically for a client, the only thing they're going to care about is driving ROI, and the only way they're going to drive ROI is if they have the right impact on the audience. So creating your messaging around driving ROI for Mr. or Mrs. Salesperson by driving a highly engaged audience that are going to go on the right journey is going to be the right kind of equation to start building out of. So making sure your messaging is strong is absolutely crucial. Mark, you've been so kind by being so quiet for a moment, but I'm going to release you right now. Mark, what is your experience of this in the last year, and what have you learned?
I guess the first to think about is that what is right for every individual business, including us, event organizers, conference organizers, and so on. What is right now, today, and 13th of July, is different to what it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 15 months ago. And exactly the same thing applies to our audiences. So I think in very simple terms, you learn that if you try and apply exactly the same logic, exactly the same media pack, exactly the same sales style, as you did in, I don't know, December 2019, for example, then you're going to come a cropper very quickly. So actually, just strip it back to what experience are your salespeople as part of your sales team having day to day in their lives, and how has the working through the last 6-9 months or so left them? You know, they may have been bruised, so to speak, through no fault of their own, just through circumstance, because they're salespeople. They want to be able to sell, and they want to be able to get their product out there, and likewise our clients want to get our products out there. So the insight from our individual experience and my sales team's experience is obviously they've had a frustrating situation and a frustrating time. So have their clients. Their clients are wanting to get back out there. So that's how they empathize. And we've just been talking through as ourselves, straightforward conversations, how you should empathize with your clients about their individual situation. Obviously, you're making no assumptions to the fact that they always used to buy from you, or they always used to take a certain size of stand or a certain package. Now that you're empathizing to understand where they're at as a business and how they may have stalled over the last year or so. As a result of that, we're finding we come across that much more, not friendly, so to speak, but actually really quite sort of engaging with our clients and understanding where they're coming from, which means they don't feel like they're being sold to. They feel like we're coming on the journey with them, and we're finding a solution that's not about how much money they spend, but it's about the fact that we are going to provide them with the right appropriate audience for their business situation, which is different to how it was the last time they were exhibiting with us.
Yeah. So there's a big part there about putting yourself in the client's shoes and empathizing, understanding their challenges, but also by tapping more into the audience, I suppose, in a way, adding insight and narrative as to why they're facing that challenge and how to solve it by kind of adapting in different ways to the audience. And actually, you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Sales client, you're facing this issue. This is what you're seeing frustration wise. Let me just paint a picture as to why that's probably happening from the audience's point of view, so we can start to really add that value in there. So would you say that a big part of what you guys have done at Ocean is that kind of shifting to that client's perspective?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Because if you use the same approach as you've always done, then it's not necessarily going to get you anywhere. And it's also not going to be dealing with the reality of where businesses are at right now. Some may have marketing budget to spend. Some may be hesitant about spending it. And if you're not aware of exactly what those drivers are within the client, if you're not sitting in the client's shoes, then you're not necessarily going to be most successful in terms of your engagement with them.
Great. Chris, what's your take on this? What's happened in over in Forum?
It was more all those kind of calls, the training and what was working and what wasn't, is making sure that, mainly the marketing team, but every department kind of within Forum understood what was working and what wasn't. Obviously, as I say, the marketing team is probably the biggest team we work closely with, to make sure that what we were doing, I don't know, however many times a day, however many times a week, however many times a month, when it comes to sending out a mass, obviously, update on whatever it was that the tone, the messaging, the short, long, whatever it was on the same level. And so that we didn't lose an opportunity in an update that was sending out. And how we kind of did that, again, another Zoom kind of calls, but we just got the core event team that was working on an individual event and made sure that seniors, the marketing team were all there, and just having a load of really honest conversations. If you don't try it, you don't know. But if you're still kind of like what Mark just said, if you're still doing things pre-COVID, like December 2019, if we're going to still do that, we'll probably go down a blind alley and hit our head somewhere. But if we did change it, try and adapt to what the sales team were getting day in, day out, then we might have more success, kind of on that. But like I kind of said in the last point, the main thing was just be very clear to the point into what we were trying to approach them and reaching out to them for. And we, as I say, we still do that, and these meetings still go on. We still have really a lot, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, depending on the event and when it is, and making sure that any information, good or bad, is shared and is used where it's needed.
Love it. So just to finish this point off, and then we'll move on to the third one, just a few pieces to put behind this stats-wise, and also a couple of book recommendations, which for any geeks in the audience like me, you might want to go away and take on and use. There's tons of stuff about getting the narrative right and storytelling and teaching. When you look at, again, research that's out there from so many different companies, teaching comes top in terms of what clients want from the sales experience above everything else. And fundamentally, within media and events, teaching needs to be about best practice from people like your client, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and about the audience behavior and what drives and what doesn't drive that audience behavior. Two books I'd recommend if you want to go and buy them. One is a book which is called What Great Salespeople Do, and it's all about storytelling and how to create stories you can deliver into your sales process, which help to really drive trust and security with your clients, but also add a level of insight that they're normally not used to receiving because it's via a story and they're far more engaging and memorable. There's a stat on that, 22 times more memorable to tell a story than a stat or an insight. It's a bit of a weird stat. And then the final bit in terms of recommendation is a Challenger sale. So it's a golden oldie. It's been there for about 8-9 years, but what they teach you in that, if you get that book, is they teach you how to create a narrative, a pitch, which teaches your client. So as opposed to doing a feature pitch or a product pitch, do a teaching pitch, which leads your client to you. So go off and have a look at that, and it'll probably make a big difference in terms of what your collateral and your conversations start to look like. So let's move on to the next one. Creates toolkits and processes. Okay, so it makes it easy for the sales teams to sell by creating templates and toolkits designed to make it easy for the client to say yes. The normal template or toolkit for a lot of people at best is a media pack, but obviously there are tons of different types of toolkits we could create to make it easier for your client to say yes themselves, but also to sell on. Designing one of them could be a rate card based on driving audience engagement and client impact. So golden oldie day is gold, silver, bronze, but actually creating stuff out of the impact you can have around specific client outcomes they want to drive, and using the audience rationale. What do the audience need for you to get that outcome, as a way of creating educational rate cards that sell themselves is really crucial. Happy if anyone wants to get in touch about those and find out what they look like. And creates and uses a sales excellence benchmark to guide and measure their team's approach. So this is a massive one. And whether it's our sales excellence benchmark or your own, unless there is an agreement as to what good looks like within your business and the approach is built for the right reasons, it becomes very, 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 very difficult to know where your teams are starting, know where you can get them to, coach them in the right ways. So having a definition of, okay, actually, these are the 5 skills or behaviors we need to work towards. That's what good looks like. This is where we're starting. Let's work together to get there. Without that, it becomes a scattergun approach with an agreement as to what good looks like in sales, which we believe should be built out of what good looks like for the client. It makes it a ton easier through these types of toolkits and also processes created for the right reasons. So we're going to come, Ranju, what's your experience of this area over the last year? Where have you brought in toolkits or processes over a read?
Oh, we've had to bring toolkits and processes in really, really quickly because
Really?
1 minute we're holding an event, live event, then the law changes or the government initiatives change, and we've already got suddenly deliver online digital hybrid events. So that itself, because it was something that we had to be really agile we had to create something that was easy for both the salespeople to understand what products we're selling, what the value of those products are, and how they would relate to what our customers' needs were. So, you can have a huge inventory of products, but actually when you go out to the client, making sure that we know what their needs are, what the benefits of, what they need to achieve from it, so we can give them a benefit-led product, really. So it's just making sure that we've got a huge inventory. Please just don't throw it at the client. Find out what those things are that they need and give them probably 2 choices or even just the one, and say, this is perfect because this is how it's going to attract the right audience for you. And voila. It gives confidence in the client and it gives confidence to the salesperson because they completely understand what they are trying to pitch and why they're trying to pitch it.
I love that. And actually the idea of being able to, as a salesperson, tell your clients how and why you create these solutions you create, what is the mechanism and method behind it, can give so much confidence, because often it is just here's all our possible products, buy it, as opposed to here's how we create our recommendations built out of your outcomes you need to drive and what the audience needs from you and us to get you there. Like suddenly just that one sentence itself, this is how we create stuff and our rationale, so you can be confident in it, just changes those trust levels. Okay, I love that. That's great. So Mark, what about yourself? What's your experience of this?
The thing for me here, we're talking about confidence. We're talking about what can instill a greater confidence or revitalize salespeople, so to speak. I came on board to a sales team earlier this year who had been, over the end of 2020 and the early part of 2021, doing a lot of account management because that's all that they could do, really, because events weren't happening. Even if events were prognosed to happen, there was no real positive outlook overall in the country. So they were really frustrated because, sales people like selling. That's all they like doing. They want to be on the phone, they want to engage with people, they want to seal deals, they want to get bonus plans, and they want to get regular bonuses and everything else. It doesn't make them any different to you or I or any of the people on the call here today. So just putting structures in place, even as simple as things to say, we have all these different conference streams at our event, and here's some opportunities. If you do it just by overall client solution focus, so thought leadership, brand awareness, nothing absolutely revolutionary about that whatsoever, but taking that concern and that particular time away from selling, taking that away from salespeople. This is what I did myself in one of the earliest parts of engaging with the business. And I just created with our marketing team some very simple templates, some very simple brochures to be able to put online, to be able to use as part of our exhibitor promotion. And then before I know it, not only are the salespeople themselves using these things and being very successful and exceeding all of our sales targets on the sponsorship side of things, but they're also thinking off their own back and actually taking on a particular project for a particular theatre or one of our events and saying, okay, you can be an associate sponsor here, and essentially just using elements of what was already in place. So they didn't have to think too much. They could just get on with selling.
Yep.
They had listened to their clients, engaged with their clients to understand what their clients' drivers were, and were able to match them in the way that all proper consultative selling should be. And they themselves were obviously quite happy because the results were coming. The clients were happy because we were giving them the right appropriate solutions. And therefore, the sales kicked in again, the bonuses kicked in again, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I really like that. And one thing it kind of brings to mind is one of the approaches we often work with clients on, which is to build processes into the sales experience, which allow the salesperson and the client to have a really natural conversation, but built out of the right areas that the client needs to talk about to be able to, for you to say yes. So what often would happen where people will be kind of, as a salesperson, left to do it their own way, or they're even sometimes given the opposite, stripped of questions. But what we see working a lot better is knowing what conversations do you have to drive with any client to be able to get them to realize what they need to do differently. And ultimately, that's what are the success outcomes they need to drive, what are the product outcomes they need to achieve, what are the challenges they're facing, and how are they approaching stuff at the moment, and then consultatively brainstorming with them, how do we fill that gap for you? And just having that kind of process in place, and for salespeople to know there's steps I need to go through here discussion wise to actually help the client make the right decision is really crucial. But it gives a level of autonomy, but it's a process that works for both the client and the salesperson. Okay, so thank you very much on that one, guys. We're going to move to number 4. Here we go. Motivates in the right way. So something I'm very passionate about, but I'm going to try and let these guys let that passion go themselves. So motivates in the right way. What we tend to see is a lot of carrot and stick in media and events. Hit your target, get this deal. But as we know, we've talked about a lot just now, things are changing. Clients are changing. Audience behavior is changing. It's tougher for them to buy. And so right now, just focusing on carrot and stick, if you get this money, then you get this commission, doesn't necessarily make it easier or more confident from a client's point of view or a salesperson's point of view to be able to do it in the right way. So what we need to be doing is making sure we are really pushing the intrinsic motivation side of things. So proactively drives a culture of intrinsic motivation across a team, focuses on autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So anyone who wants a book recommendation, there's another one here, which is a book called Drive by a chap called Dan Pink. If you want to take a shortcut, tap in TED Talks, Drive, and autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and you'll see a 20-minute TED talk about it. It's absolutely sublime. But basically, it talks about how do you get a team wanting to jump out of bed and think, I want to do my best job today. I'm going to do it in the right way. I'm really bursting with energy, as opposed to plodding along thinking, oh my goodness, not another Monday. So it talks about how to create that intrinsic, not just extrinsic. Leads by example. I know I've got an example in a minute about leading by example, but leads by example, projects optimism, has a growth mindset, and regularly engages with clients. So if you want your team to behave in a certain way and expect from them certain things, if you're not demonstrating it yourself, then you're going to struggle to get them to emulate that. And focuses on building empathy, resilience, and wellness across the team. Mental health is so crucial right now, and prioritizing it in your teams is really important. About a year ago, I did a Flume chat with a psychologist who talked about the idea of, as a sales leader, putting on your oxygen masks on yourself first before then helping everyone else. But putting that wellness of yourself and your team at the heart of your strategy is super, super important. So we're going to come for this one first. Let's come to Chris. What's your experience been over at Forum around this motivation side? What have you done? What have you learned?
I had threefold, but mainly me personally, I just wanted to lead from the front. I think there are clear dominoes that I was trying to achieve after that. If I could show that it could be done, first and foremost, if anyone had any questions about what was going on in the world at that time, if I could prove that I pitched, I've come up against these hurdles, this is how I approached it. And I was there on the front line actually selling there. Like I wasn't reading books or going to Flume's webinars and coming back with what I thought that the answer should be. I was actually doing it myself. And I think, and even part of those morning calls, I was attending them, yes, as a senior, but I was attending them as a salesperson, and sharing within the team my experiences, again, rather than just leading the call. So I and that's just my personality. That was how I like to tackle sales and management. Kind of the other like kind of the flip of that, or a side of that, is negativity. Everyone, whether you're selling or receiving a sale call or whatever, there were some dark days and months there. So actually trying to pick up on that in any of the sales team, and actually just trying to remove that I think the more time wasted, oh, that was a really bad call, or anything. Well, try to dust yourself down. Understand that if you're doing delegate sales or whatever we're doing, if that's one person, that's a drop in the ocean. Don't worry about it. Laugh it off. Dust yourself down. The next call could be someone that is interested. That might end up being the 100th call, but that's the kind of headspace to try and get into. And also for them themselves, I think I touched on it before, but we realigned our expectation of them, but made sure that they knew that as well. So rather than, yes, of course, we want sales in and we want people to come to the events, but really focus on and drive in the expectation of just pitch well a lot of times. It will create interest and then naturally bookings will come. Just focus on them small cogs and then good things will come after that. And we're still doing that. And even more so after Monday's announcement. As I said earlier, before this started, we've already done some live events now. And as now with the whole world is starting to come out the other side, hopefully, trying to get people to events and actually getting the sales team to actually get across all the benefits and some of the safety measures, that's going to be really key. And there's going to be resistance against that as well. So again, just trying to lead from the front and do that day to day to keep my finger on the pulse as well.
Yeah, there's so many different lessons there. One of the big phrases that kind of come through is around expectations and managing the expectations. And as those scenarios change, shifting the expectations as to what your teams can focus on as success, like what does success look like from this? And it's the amount of product pitches as an example based on yours as opposed to the amount of revenue, because you know that will kind of come. So that's a big lesson. What Mark, what have you seen over at Ocean?
I guess the interesting thing from my personal perspective is I've in the past, going back a year or two, gone into teams and sort of sat there for the first initial period and observed what's going on and observed how the teams are to be able to like pick it all up by osmosis. And then coming into Ocean at the beginning of this year, as I said, previously there wasn't necessarily so much optimism amongst the salespeople for obvious reasons, because they hadn't been able to close those deals because the market didn't allow them to. So I just dived straight in from virtually day one, picking up my own appropriate clients, leading from the front, exactly as Chris is saying, because you can project optimism however you want to be and just be a happy-go-lucky person. But obviously, if you're talking to clients day to day and you're able to understand from clients, this is what they're actually about and this is what they are developing, then you can project that information, and that's a real life story to be able to pass on to the appropriate client, which means that any sales message you're trying to give isn't just from a handbook or isn't just from a Dan Ping book, no disrespect to Dan Ping, but is actually from real life experience from day to day in 2020 and 2021, which means you are empathizing with both your clients and you're empathizing with your sales team as well, because you're experiencing and hearing the same things that they're hearing. And you're not automatically trying to ignore any particular concerns their clients may have, but you're saying, okay, so this is what I heard from my client, and this is the type of approach that I engage with them, and this is the success that we had. So maybe you can try that type of thing. Yeah, your individual client with maybe one of my sales team can utilize the same approach, and that would be a benefit to them and to their client as well.
I think what I'm hearing here, that leading by example thing is so crucial. And it makes sense. Put yourself into a salesperson's point of view. They can be told left, right, and center what they should be doing by a sales leader. But the natural thing would come back to say, yeah, but you don't understand my world. No, things have changed. It's different. It's easy to say that theory stuff. But putting yourself at the heart of it, being client focused. And actually, it kind of comes into some of the stuff we were talking about before. When you look at where sales leaders need to excel to have the biggest impact on their teams, there's three core areas. Number one is being client focused, actually understanding the clients your teams are speaking to and being involved in it. The next one is focusing on coaching, so you can then share that you learned with the team and coach them. The other is around unblocking block deals. Okay, well, if that's happening right now, I've tried this recently, let's try this out with your client. But being able to kind of coach and unblock block deals, really, that comes from being client focused yourself, right? Being client facing yourself and having that experience, because without that, any advice can be almost ignored by the team, because it's like, well, yes, you would say that, but you haven't been doing it for 15 years. So I really like that kind of front and face up front. This is what I do, leading by example, makes a massive difference to motivation. Let's move to the final area of the benchmark. So supports team success. So this is around kind of strategy. So what we're looking at here creates a sales strategy designed to make it easy as possible for the sales teams to sell as much as possible. So I think a lot of people do put a focus on sales strategy, but often, especially in the olden days, it used to be something maybe we'd take a day out and we'd do a really great sales strategy away day, and then we'd build this brilliant strategy, and then whoa, it'd go in the filing cabinet. You can tell how old I am, but that was before we had the cloud. But fundamentally, it's building a strategy that's going to work for today's audience, client, sales teams, and that is going to be revisited and used to help the team continuously be agile. Helps the team to build and execute territory, client, and performance plans. So planning is one of the most important parts, in my opinion, in terms of sales, but actually it's also one of the most overlooked, because a lot of salespeople, no disrespect to any salespeople, I'm on myself, but aren't naturally super gifted at the planning side of things. We prefer just to get stuck in and go for it. But actually, to coin a phrase of my old driving instructor, you've got to slow down when you come up to a corner to be able to speed up. And sometimes being able to actually step back and think, right, what is going to get me where I need to get to, and the client where they need to get to in the best possible way is absolutely crucial. So building out with your teams ways that they can approach their territory, effort plans, working out how to grow within companies and get into bigger companies, and strategizing around that is really crucial. The other phrase I've got here is performance plans, because a lot of people, when they do performance planning, it's when someone is struggling. But actually, everyone should be looking at increasing their performance and ability. It's one of the big motivators, mastering what you do and getting better and better and better at stuff. So being able to create performance plans for everyone, not just the underperformers, is crucial to help people feel like they're improving and getting better and better and better. And the last one is works with the teams to help identify and unblock block deals. So I talked about this one before, being actually one of the most influential areas that sales leaders can work with their teams on. It's actually proven to be the number one area that can have an impact on driving revenues in your teams. Is, as opposed to just going to your team saying, where are you against target? We go to the teams now and say, where are you against target? Let's look at some of the deals that are slowing down that we've been talking about for weeks. Let's get into the client's shoes and think about why that might be happening. And let's see if we can brainstorm together some approaches you can put into action between now and next time to unlock that. And it's more of a, let me help you how to, as opposed to just tell me where you are. So some ideas here around supporting success. Ranju, what's your experience around this one?
From a sales point, I think there's so many products and so many parts of moving parts in teams that you need to know who's delivering what. So whether it's the functions like operations or helping you deliver the digital platform, they know the ins and outs of that platform. And until you as a salesperson understands exactly what it's offering, how it can help our customer achieve, you can't actually sell it as a good product. So you need to be really confident about that. And that also comes into that, overlaps with the previous part, where it's like where people not sales teams are not confident in selling new products like digital. If you show that how you go, what your approach is, and you can have them listen in, that really helps them and gives them the confidence, because you know what you're doing, or you hope you know what you're doing, and you can deliver that. So I think working with the different functions to deliver a really meaningful sort of a customer experience, because then we can give them the best sort of customer experience. We know what's happening if they buy something off us. That's really important, and that's really helps sales teams, I think, sell a lot better. I know I'm more confident if I know where the delegate data is being researched from, who the delegates are, etc., or what the platforms are being offered, and at the end what solution I can offer my client. I won't go back into leading by example, but I've just mentioned that really important, supporting pitches and showing how you would do it, and being critiqued as well. You know, there's no one perfect way of doing it, but do it both ways. So lead and be led by somebody else. And unblocking deals, it's just going back to that table and saying, what is it the customer needs? Did you actually understand what finding out if the salesperson understood what the customer actually needs from whatever we're trying to sell them. So as opposed to just selling them something, what is that bridge that we need to get? What's the gap that, well, I'm not saying that properly, but you know, where can we sort of fill that gap? And that's what helps everybody understand that we're not just selling a product, we're trying to fulfill a need, and it should have a benefit to the customer before they buy it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that came to mind as you were going through your second point there actually was around, and your first point was kind of around working with different parts of your business, but you also talked about kind of having sight of calls and listening to calls. One of the clients that we work with, one of the things they did that was really successful, actually I've got two examples of this. One was a client who actually, when they recorded calls, they actually got the critiquing to be done by other departments. So because they were selling to marketers, they actually got the marketing department. With your marketer's hat on, in terms of like a buyer of this stuff, can you play back the best and the worst and what worked and what didn't? And sometimes that can be really, really useful. And it also helps the marketers have sight of what the salespeople are doing. The other one I've heard, and this is a very brave approach, is a company who worked out what they wanted their sales experience from a client's point of view to look like, and they frameworked it. So there's 5 things you can expect from our sales experience, and every quarter we're going to come to you and ask you to rate us. Where are we? And essentially that then gave kind of this incentive for the salespeople to deliver an amazing experience based on what the client was actually saying. They were getting a brave approach, but it really made a difference in terms of intent and trust. Chris, what's your experience around this side?
It's kind of on the planning and strategy element of things. Is that, again, we got different departments together with the core sales team. We included the data team as well, and just made sure that we got a flipboard, wrote on there the event name, how we're getting it to target. Once everyone had stopped crying, then we worked out, right, how we're going to get it to target, what everyone's jobs were. The data team were going to do X, the marketing team would do Y, the sales team, be efficient, so no one's doing the same thing. Like the sales team don't need to do data clean if the data team are doing it on the same element. And just everyone making sure they knew what their roles were, so that when the event came, whether you hit target, went over target, missed target, had a shocker, that at least everyone could turn around and go, we did everything. You can, whatever the success is, we know there was no stone unturned, and we tried everything, and we certainly last year we did everything that we could to reach what the goals that were set on the table, and we still do it. The event strategies are still a really key part of being efficient and understanding what everyone's bringing to the table and how, as a company, we're going to get from A to B. So yeah, we're still doing those.
Love it. Okay, so let's wrap this up with a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to give a brief summary of what you guys have just said, but then I want you guys thinking about this. I hadn't told you I'm going to do this, so sorry. But I'm going to ask you for your one tip. Like if someone's just joined the webinar right now and they want you to kind of give them the one thing that you would say, focus on this, it'll make the biggest difference, that you've learned over the last year, guys, that you want to share. So have a quick think about that. I'll just share with the audience what we've been through. So a benchmark for sales confidence through leadership. This is a diagnostic we can send through to you. You will get a copy of this afterwards. My recommendation, guys, is that you think about your sales leadership approach and think, where are the gaps, and go away and use some of the ideas from the team that we've just heard just then and put them into place to try and drive more confidence into your sales teams where necessary. So the 5 areas to focus on are prioritizing sales mastery. If people aren't getting better and better and better at sales, then you're probably not going to get more and more revenue. So really prioritizing that coaching and knowing what good looks like. Number 2, perfect messaging, insights around audience, stories as well, and building those into your narrative. Number 3, creating toolkits, which are bigger than just a media pack or a proposal, building rate cards based around client impacts and outcomes, and teaching rate cards that educate around the audience, selling on documents, things that make it easier for the salespeople to confidently say, we have a way of doing this, Mr. or Mrs. Client. Number 4, motivates in the right way, not just carrot and stick, not just extrinsic. Create incentivizations which are built to drive intrinsic motivation around purpose, method, and application, but also incentivizing that idea of getting better and better and better. And one of the things Chris mentioned before before, the incentives around different expectations. You know, if the expectation at the moment is just make as many pitches as you can, then that is what should be incentivized. So being really kind of flexible and agile in terms of thinking, what do I want the team to do, and making that the goal, because the outcome of driving more revenue will come as a result of that. And number 5, supports team success. So sets up a strategy which is consistently used and looked at. And as we mentioned before, a massive part of this is making sure that we're building into the planning piece, but also making sure that we're leading by example with the approach. So we will get across this diagnostic. I'm going to come to you guys. God knows what's going to come out now. Let's hear these mega tips from some of the best in the industry. So we're going to start with Ranju.
I'm going to say understand both customer and buyer insights so we can give them the perfect, we have the perfect combination to offer a great solution to them. Love it.
Chris?
Twofold. I definitely, the help not sell and be honest, the different angle of the approach. And as sales leaders, you've got to practice what you preach. So lead from the front, but what you're also actually selling or you're pitching is help not sell. Okay,
nice one. Mark?
Obviously, I'd echo all the things that my esteemed colleagues have just said, but no, for mine, it would just be very straightforward. It's self-awareness, just being aware of how you as a sales leader come across. The world has changed. We've all individually changed. Our approaches therefore need to adapt and flex appropriately. If we need to, as sales leaders, take a step back, think, am I approaching each task and each individual within my sales team in exactly the right way? Am I just repeating the same mistakes that I may have made in a different place? Am I actually working, and is my sales team working as smartly as they can? They may be working as hard as they can, but are they working as smart as they can? And as long as we as sales leaders are being smart, not necessarily just working hard, then we're on the right track.
Amazing. Okay, so ladies and gents, this is the second of 3 sales confidence webinars, and a third webinar is on the 19th of August, so a few weeks away, and that is aimed at anyone who wants to come, but it's going to be focusing on, as an event business, how can you set yourselves up to help your sales leaders be more confident, the sales teams be more confident, therefore the clients, therefore the audience, etc. If there is stuff you want to ask us about, then I'm sure with a nod, hopefully from these guys, Ranju, Chris and Mark, they would be comfortable if you wanted to write them a quick email with any questions or any things you wanted to find out more, just to say hello. Please join us on LinkedIn, follow these guys, follow us. There's tons of stuff we'll be sharing from today as follow-up to this, and also at Flume, we're absolutely committed to try and help the industry as much as we can, so we're always putting stuff out there. If you want to get in touch with me personally, here's my email address, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank the AEO for being there for us, and also for having us as their ambassadors around sales development. If there's anything more you need from any of us, reach out. Until then, I want to say thank you to Mark, Chris, Ranju, Joe Burton for setting this up, and the AEO. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Guys.